everybody, this is Mrs. Babin, and today I'm going to use this Prezi presentation to talk to you about rubrics. We're going to look at what are rubrics, how do you read a rubric, how do rubrics help me write, and of course, since we're talking about FCAT Writes, what is the FCAT Writes Rubric? Let's start with what are rubrics. Rubrics are a really great tool. So I want you to look at your neighbor and I want you to say rubric. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rubric. It's a fun word to say. I like to say it myself. So here's what a rubric is. It's a scoring tool and it tells you what counts when you're getting graded for something. It has two parts. It lists the criteria that you're going to be judged on, and it also lists the different levels that you can attain when you're looking at that criteria. And we're going to look at a rubric in just a minute, so if that's not clear to you, don't worry about it. But first, I want us to think about how you read a rubric, and we're going to look at Superman. Now, Superman is one of my most favorite superheroes, and we're going to watch a short little video that talks about the criteria you would have to have if you are Superman. So I want you to look at that and see what criteria do we need to be Superman.
Adventures of Superman. Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky. It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman.
All right, here's the rubric for being a superhero. And when we looked at the movie, there were 3 criteria. The first criteria was speed. The second one was leaping ability. And the third, of course, if we're talking about Superman, has to be strength. Now, if you look across the top, it has 3 different levels. The first one we have is exemplary, and that means that you're awesome, that you're doing something amazing. The second one is adequate. It means that you know your stuff, but there's no above and beyond. You haven't done any better than just what's the bare minimum. And the third one is beginning, and that means that you might still not be sure about how to use that criteria or how to show that criteria in whatever it is that you're doing. So let's think about Superman for a minute. We said earlier that the criteria for being a superhero, being Superman, was that you had to have speed, leaping abilities, and strength. Now in our video, it said if you were an exemplary Superman, you would be faster than a speeding bullet, you would be able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and you would be more powerful than a locomotive. Well, what if you're not like an exemplary Superman? What if you're just an adequate Superman? Well, maybe then you would be faster than a speeding car and able to leap a garage. Or maybe your fist maybe you would be more powerful than Mike Tyson's fist. But if you were a beginning superhero, you probably would be faster than a speeding turtle, and maybe you could leap some short hurdles, and you probably wouldn't be much more powerful than my sister's kitten. So what I want you to do right now is look at your language arts teacher who's standing there in your class, and I want you to use this rubric and think about whether they are an exemplary superhero in your class, whether they are an adequate superhero, or whether they might just be a beginning superhero. So what I want you to do is for about 30 seconds, I want you to buzz with your neighbor and decide whether your teacher is beginning, adequate, or exemplary. So I hope you got a chance to think about that, and I'm sure all of you chose that every single one of our language arts teachers are exemplary superheroes. Let's look at the next part. Some of you are already asking, well, that's great for superheroes, but how does this rubric thing help me write? Well, I'm going to show you the FCAT rubric in just a second, but I want you to know that rubrics are really easy to understand. And one of the benefits are that they really let you know what's expected of you. It gives you an opportunity to judge your own writing based on the criteria that you're going to be using and to make it better so that you can always get the score that you want. Now we're going to look at this FCAT rubric, and I hope that all of you will get really excited about it, because once you understand what it takes for you to do amazing on the FCAT Writes test, I think you will find that your writing will become much better and much more honed. So let's take a look at this rubric. You'll see that the FCAT Writes actually has 4 criteria. That's it. They only judge you on 4 things. And the 4 things that they judge you on are focus, organization, support, and conventions. Now, for today, you're going to see that I have exemplary, adequate, and beginning. And we're not going to worry about beginning because we don't have anybody at Dowdell who would even end up on beginning. But I want you to look at the exemplary because I think that's really important. We always shoot for that 6, but sometimes we don't really know what it takes. So here are the things that we need to do in order to get that 6. As far as focus goes, you have to stay tight on the topic. You have to make your writing purposeful, and you have to make sure that it gives insight into the topic. When you're organizing your essay, it says over here that you have to have an obvious organizational pattern, and it provides a sense of completeness with this logical progression of ideas. That means it builds one idea on top of the other. When we look at support, or how you support your ideas, it says that the support has to be complete. It has to be relevant, and it has to illustrate something. That's where those whole anecdotes come into play. It also says that your support has to have really great word choice, that it's precise, that it's fresh, that it's expressive. And of course, when we get to conventions, it says that you have to have few, if any. We want to shoot for the no errors in conventions. And that would be things like spelling and grammar and punctuation. And then here's this other part for conventions that we sometimes forget. Sentence structure. And they're talking about having a variety of sentence structure that adds to the effectiveness of how you write. Now this is how you get a 6. And I can hear a bunch of you already going, really? Seriously? That's all I have to do to get a 6? Mrs. Babin, I so can do that. And I know you can. But for many of you, it's just wakening up to what it is that you need to do. The adequate is what gets us those 3s and 4s. And we really want to shoot for that 6, because you're going to find that if you have a 3 or 4, it means that in focus, that you've had some loose material, maybe some stuff that didn't relate to it, that maybe your organizational pattern isn't really very tight and it lacks some wholeness, or you didn't really build one idea on top of the other. Or perhaps if you got that 3 or 4, some of your support was kind of incomplete, or your ideas and word choice were pretty predictable. You didn't give us any wow words. Or maybe you have a ton of spelling and grammar errors on there, and it kind of takes away from being able to read what you're writing. Or you keep using the same kind of sentence over and over and over. So I hope that you learned a little bit about rubrics today, and definitely how you can improve your writing using an FCAT rubric. We're going to be talking more about this as the year goes on, but today we just wanted to give you an introduction of how rubrics work for you as a writer. Your teachers now are going to ask you to just do a 2-sentence reflection so that you can tell us, what did you learn today about rubrics and how can it help you with your writing? Thanks a lot, and I hope I'll see you around campus. Bye!